All right, thanks so much for joining Salpo's webinar today on taking control of your email. Today we're going to be focusing on syncing your email with the Salpo CRM and using our IMAP connector, connecting your Gmail or Outlook email accounts with Salpo, displaying new and historic emails against your known contacts, and then what happens to unknown contact emails, excluding personal or unwanted contacts from your stored emails, and instantly accessing your email so that you can get it whenever and wherever you are and whenever you need it. All right, so first off, let's talk about the email connector. When you log into Salpo, you get this welcome to CRM kind of widget, and to help you get started. And the first element of doing that, and I'd say the primary use case, is that people want to get their email account set up. It creates like transparency across the system for all the different users and departments. You're no longer reliant, and like if you're a sales agent, you're no longer reliant on calling into the office and asking them, hey, what's the most recent email that's gone back and forth with this client, or what did so-and-so say last time they were there. By connecting your emails, you're creating a transparent account management system so that you can really see what's going on. And it extends past just that kind of sales use case. Even if you're working on a project and you have multiple different influencers and points of contact that are emailing in and coordinating, even if you use a simple use case like a wedding, how many different vendors you're working with while planning that event and things that are coming through. Even though that is just one event, there's still a lot of interaction that's going on. So that can be housed in one place so that it's easily identified and located by multiple team members, but it also streamlines that process. So if you really think about how much time do I open up my Outlook or my Gmail account and start searching for the contact and scrolling through emails just to see what was most recently said or who said what, and what the results were from a specific meeting. And by mapping that information into a CRM system like Salpo's, you really get visibility on that. It's easily identifiable. You can filter and report on that information. So it makes it quite simple to really access that information and share it across the team. And then, like I just had mentioned, is report on it. And we'll get to reporting kind of at the end as well. So let's start with syncing your email into Salpo. So using this getting started widget is, I would say, the easiest place to do this. Let's say I've got Office 365. I've already connected my Gmail one, but let's say I've got an Office 365 account as well. As soon as you click on that, it just asks you for your email and password, and all you have to do is enter in that information. If you do not have a Mail or a Gmail or an Office 365 email account, you can connect using any other email provider, and just the same way you type in your email, your username if applicable, or if it's different, the password, and then your host and port. Because Google and Office 365 are standard, we've populated it into the system for you, so you don't have to enter that information. But if you don't, or if you are using a different provider, you just enter in your host and port. You can easily Google that information to identify it and see what it is. This upload attachments means any attachment that's been included on an email can get uploaded against or within that communication and email when it comes into Salpo as well. So that's the easiest way of getting it set up. I'd say the next place of getting it set up is underneath your username and coming to the integration section, and it'll look like this. Where I've got now my email accounts. So I'm just going to click on email accounts, and I can see that there is one in here. If I didn't have an email account in here, I would come over and add a new email account. And that's, again, it would just look like that same screen before where I have to add in the host and port information. If I ever need to edit, let's say I've changed my password in Gmail or changed my password in Office 365, this is the exact same place I would come to then change that password in Salpo, because I need to update it so that that connection still works, so that my Gmail still talks to Salpo. And I just come over here and click edit, and my host and port information will be saved from the last time I entered it. So I just have to enter in my new password and hit next. And when that happens, you're given a list of all the different mailboxes, and this will happen with the same way when you're connecting via the widget, but you get a list of all the different mailboxes that you can select to map into Salpo. So if you look at the option here, it's asked, well, what mailbox did you want to have synced? And I chose from under my inbox, I chose the MailChimp folder. Most of our clients choose the inbox and sent mail folders. That way, all communications coming in and outbound are captured by the CRM. And the CRM only captures emails that are where that address is stored against an existing contact in Salpo. And then any emails that are unrecognized, or it's an email that isn't stored against an existing contact in Salpo, goes into a bucket for that user to review at a later time called lost communications. And it's essentially like a suggested contacts, because then you can add that email address to an existing contact. Like, let's say in the instance that someone was on holiday and they messaged me from their personal account instead of their work account. Or then so I needed to add that new email address against them. But it could also be the example that it's a brand new contact, and so I need to create a new contact. And then the last example might be that I don't want that contact coming into Salpo because it's a personal contact. So I can ignore them from that time as well. So we'll watch where you do that at the next step. So once I choose this mailbox, and just to show you what that looks like in your Outlook folder, I've come to Natalie's inbox. I've got my MailChimp folder here, and then all of these emails that are in this folder are copying over into Salpo as well and populating against the matched contact. So if I look and click on any of these, let's say this talent one, and I have my reply to contact in here, that's going to be grabbed by the CRM. And it's going to ask me where I want that email address to populate, because that's not an existing contact in the CRM. And so that's how that would look. But again, most clients just use the standard inbox folder and then the sent mail folder, so that anything that's coming through is captured. You don't have, the onus isn't on the user to select this email and drag it to the associated folder, which is a little bit more time demanding, and the onus is on that user to really ensure that the team gets the visibility required. But it is a way of managing what goes into the CRM if you have permissions or limitations as to what you do want populated into the system. So that's how you're going to can get the Gmail or Outlook or other email provider accounts connected and synced with Salpo. Once that's done, everything will start automatically happening, unless you've created that special folder where you have to drag and drop those emails into it. Once you've set the sync up, Salpo does all of the work for you. You don't have to worry about BCCing anybody. Nothing is impacted on your usual day-to-day. You can still email and message directly out of Outlook, and then automatically those messages will copy over into the CRM. Next is talking about auto-displaying the new and historic emails against known contacts. So if I come over under a new contacts profile page, so this is Alan Jones, you'll see that he's got some emails or some communications set up against him. And a lot of these are going to be ones that we've manually added into the system. So you can see we have some notes, meetings, and things like that. And he's got 2 email addresses against him already, Alan and a no reply email address. I don't have any of his emails mapping in here though. So maybe his email address hasn't populated against in the system. So where would that happen? How do I get that information to populate? If I come under the communications header, there's a little green down arrow, and I click on the lost communications section. It takes me to our lost communications page, and you'll see here that I've got a list of email addresses. So let's say that Alan's email address actually is this Talend team option here. As soon as I click on this, it's showing me the email address and that email that was associated with it. So just like when we clicked into my emails, this is showing exactly how it did in my Outlook. So this is then that lost communication section. So because this is an unknown email address, this email isn't associated with a current contact in the Salpo system, so it populated here. And maybe this is where I'm messaging back and forth with Alan. So then when I come to my lost communications, I can notice, oh, well, that's why none of his emails are populating in here. His email address isn't stored against his profile page. So now, and I can come here and see what that is. Now I get those options that we were just talking about, where I can ignore that email address by adding this specific email address to my ignore list, or I can ignore all of my lost communications, which essentially ignores everybody over here on the left-hand side of the screen. I would say that's not a traditional thing to do. Next, the other option is, though, to add that address to a new individual, a new organization, or an existing contact. If I click on new individual, our add modal pops up and it just pre-populates the email in there for you. If I click on existing contact, it gives me a search option. So now I'm going to search for Alan, and I can see Alan Jones is right here, and I'll click save. And you'll see that that email address has now dropped off the lost communications listing here. And then let's say I want to ignore any messages from Oliver M. I can click on this. I see our the email exchanges that have gone back and forth, but now I want to ignore this one. So I'm going to add Oliver M to my ignore list. It'll ask me if I want to confirm, and it kind of explains the repercussions of that. So I'm just going to click the yes, and you see that Oliver is now dropped off of that listing. If I want to view any ignored email addresses, I'm going to hop over into that option, and I can see that there's Oliver and where he's been deleted. I can remove this from the ignore list, which would then restore him back as a email that I can search against and populate messages against and such. So I would say that's the best way to populate that in if you're accidentally ignoring an email address. You can also, if let's say this list gets quite long, if everybody you've ignored, then you can search or add an email address into there manually. All right, so that's how you're going to auto display any of the new and historic emails against existing contacts in the system, and excluding personal or unwanted contacts from your stored emails. So if, meaning that if I want someone excluded, that's how I'm just going to ignore them here. And because I removed Oliver, you're seeing him populate back over here as an option. And so that's how that process works. Next is going to be checking out what that looks like on the profile page. So when we were first on Alan's profile page, we didn't see any emails associated with his account. So I'm just going to quick hit the refresh button. And now I'm going to see that I've got, maybe I need just a couple other minutes for the email message to populate through, but you'll see that we've got this email address, talonteam@talon.com, populating against his account. So then that email that we were looking at is going to populate against this listing as well. Oh, and here you go. I needed to refresh that. So I'll see that Leader 2019 email message in here, and as soon as I click on it, you'll see that this is the exact same email we were just looking at in that lost comms section. And if I want to toggle between emails, I just use these toggle options down here, moving back and forth. So these are our meetings, notes, and calls and things, but if there were multiple emails, that's just like a quick action for me to access and see what's going on across the team and get caught up, especially if I'm going out to a meeting and I want to search through and see what the most recent conversations have been. So when we're talking about instantly accessing your email from wherever you are and whenever you need it, we're talking about using the communications element in that email option, not just from like having your email set up on your phone. It's because you can use that information within Salpo as well to quickly access it. So whilst I was on Alan Jones's profile page, I can see that if it's an email, it's tagged with an email. I can quick jump into it and have a look. But then Salpo also has a mobile app. So if you're out on the road, let's say you're working on a construction project or something, and you're out on the road and you need to see what the most recent design specs were and you forgot to print it out, because your email has actually synced right into the Salpo system, you can go to the project or the event that you're working on and see any of those emails that are associated with that event or job and things like that against that profile record. So right now I'm in a contacts profile record, and if I knew whoever sent me the specs, then I'd have that information right there with me. But let's say I don't know who the person was, I only know it was the job that it was associated with. Then what I can do, let's see what events are set up in here. So I've got this event ID 2. So if I jump into this event, let's say this is that construction option, and I have a spec from a client, I'm going to use this event ID 2 as a tag in my emails. So if I copy that and I attach it into an email and put it in the subject line, so let's say I come back to my mail here, and I want to create a new one, and if I type this subject option, but I'm just going to put the job ID in here. Now I'm going to do, like if I would just type it out as to whoever the contact is, but as long as I put that in my subject line, it can be in parentheses, it can be at the end of the subject, so it could be query about job, and I can put the ID in the subject line like that. It can be in any structured format that you want, as long as that it's in that tag is in the subject line, then that email message will populate into Salpo against not just the contact, but against the event as well. So to show you where that happens, like let's jump back into Alan's profile page. And we saw that he had the existing communication with that talent one. So let's act like this email had that event ID in it originally. Or let's say they responded and forgot, or they took the tag out. How would I get that tag back in there? Or how would I associate that communication with that job? What I would do is I can search for that and say, well, I'm going to search for this specific event. And oh, it wasn't titled event. Or I can just type in the ID that I knew he had, and it's going to grab the event by the specific ID that I have. So I'm just going to click on that, and it's now saying it's tagged. So this email will now populate against Alan's profile page, Natalie's profile page as the Salpo user, and the events profile page. So I'm going to click save. And you'll see that there's a little tag ID that's shown up in this lining here. So then if I click on that event ID, I'm taken back to the event we were just looking at. And if I click on the communications drop down, you'll see this email has populated here as well. So if I am on that construction site, I can't remember who the email has just come from, I'll just go to the event that we have set up or the job that we have set up, and I can quick scroll through and find out that information. And click into it, see what was happening. If any files were attached in the email, it would just show up under this attached files section. And when I click it here, it's showing no results found right now because there weren't any, but it would show as listed options for me to click and download or view. If I want to manually add one, I can attach a file from here and just click on choose file, and that pulls from my file manager on my desktop or phone, however I'm using the system, or from whatever device I'm using the system. So that's how I'm going to quickly access that information from wherever I'm from. That same functionality is available on our mobile app, so you don't have to change your workflows, change your user case. It's all going to be the same user case, whether you're using it on the desktop, the app, or a tablet. So the app on your mobile phone. So then now, lastly, I wanted to talk about reporting. So now that I've got all this information in here, how can I report on it? Where else am I going to get from it? So, and maybe you don't need to work on any of your reports, but maybe you do want to do a quick, show me how many outbound calls we did for a specific client. So if I'm a marketing agency, how many outbound calls did we do for that client? Because that could be a job that you've then attached all of these communications against, or those calls and emails and things. Or maybe you're a marketing agency and you email your blog posts out and then have that auto push to Facebook or Instagram or a specific blog, and you need to do end of year reporting based off of those emails to say, show me how many emails that this client was included in for the marketing campaigns. So then what I'm going to do is filter by that information. So if I come to our communications list view page, and again, if you look at this arrow, you've got all of your communications or the lost communications, and that's the lost ones are where those unidentified email contacts are listed. All communications gives you a list of all of the communications across the system though. So that's including, you can see here, phone calls, meetings, emails. But let's say I want to see everything that the method is an email, and update this. So I'm seeing all of the emails that we've mapped into the system from here. But let's say I want to change who the participants are, or if it's for a specific client, or maybe I don't want any participants. I want to look at the specific job or tag that it's associated with. So we had event ID 2. Oh, I think it's, that was 1D. ID 2. So I'm grabbing that specific tag and updating this, and it's filtering down to show me that one specific communication. So you really can filter and identify your emails that are going back and forth based off of the jobs, the method, who's associated or included in those emails. Excuse me, and then also any of the other elements. So if you knew that email was sent on a specific date, you can filter by that information. If there was a flag of importance against it, or even if you knew the subject line of the email, you can search by that information. And then from there, if you can build out any like your actions of exporting the information out of the system or getting it into a report. So if I want to export that data into a CSV file, I can get it into Excel and do some further manipulation. Or if I save the filter, it ends up creating like a raw data report for me to use that I can then populate on my home screen that will look like this, where I have a list of any specific communications or tasks that I need to follow up with. So let's say an important email came in and you knew you needed to follow up with it within 24 hours, then so let's say that was specifically for a ticketing system, then you might apply that or create a task for you to follow up on that email, and it would show here in your listing of tasks, to-dos, and things like that, because you can forward date then that message and when it was received. All right, so that's kind of everything and how we're going around with looking at Salpo. We've had a look at how to sync your emails with Salpo using our IMAP connector, connecting your Gmail and Outlook accounts into Salpo so that your emails sync through, whether you're using the inbox and sent folder or a specifically designated folder within your email provider. Auto-displaying the new and historic emails against known contacts, and then how to exclude unwanted contacts from your stored emails or just ignore specific emails that you didn't want to populate into the system. Instantly accessing your emails from wherever you are and how to quickly get to them via the reporting or accessing on the profile page. And that's pretty much covers it. And if you have any questions or feedback, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. If you have some feedback, the marketing team would love to hear from you, whether it's the structure of the webinar, what kind of information is being provided, examples, anything you want to follow up with, even if it's taking a further look at Salpo. They can help you by if you reach out to marketing@salpo.com. And our support team for existing customers or anybody that's on trial and has a question or needs assistance getting set up, or how to run a specific report and what they're looking at, or creating tags and how to use that and where it goes, don't hesitate to reach out to us at support@salpo.com. And either way, both emails will work and a knowledgeable member of our team will get back to you. So we look forward to hearing from you. Thanks so much for attending, and we hope to speak soon.